Writers Tribe Talk Show. I'm your host, Elsa Kurt, and today I have an amazing guest, a guest I'm very jealous of for the writing genre that he's in because I can't do it. Today we have Mark DRESSLER. Mark, oh, I did it. I did it. I knew I was going to do it. Mark L. DRESSLER. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Elsa. No problem. No problem.
So yeah, we literally, so I have to tattletale on myself. We literally, just before we hit the record button, Mark reminded me that not to please make sure I say the L, because I think there's another Mark DRESSLER out there. So, you know, you have to kind of distinguish yourself to make sure people know the right Mark L. DRESSLER. And I said, I won't forget. No problem. I got it. What'd I do? I forgot. So yeah, how about that? So Mark, I love talking to other authors because I love hearing their process, like their background, I love the whole deal. So before we get like right into the books, tell me a little bit about your background as far as when you started writing professionally and how long you've been writing for.
Well, I've been writing since 2014, and it's just a weird story. I never envisioned writing. I'm not even a real reader. I do read some, but writing was nowhere on my plate. I retired in 2011, and my younger daughter had a house in Tallinn, okay? And it was set way back, 7 acres of land. You'd never know there was a house on the property from the road. And I used to go up on her back porch in the deck and look out, and I'd say, you know, you can find a dead body out there. It was literally a forest. And I don't know what happened. One night, I know it was September 2014, I came home and I just started writing about a dead body, okay? And I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm going to say I wrote 5 to 10 pages max. And I let it sit. And I had no idea what to do. I went back to it. Something made me go back to it. And I just started writing. I started enhancing the story. And I started creating characters. And now this is a common thing that you'll hear from other authors. But when I started creating the characters, I was just blown away because, well, they take on a life of their own. And they start talking to each other. And before I knew it, they're taking me places I really didn't know I was going. They're starting to drive the bus, and I just kept writing, and the story kept changing. And I'm a pantser, by the way. I know that question will come up.
I love that.
And yeah. Well, that's kind of a learned thing too, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm going to say 6 months maybe, and I kept writing, and I'm going to call it a first draft of something, 300 pages of something. And that was my first book. That's dead and gone. Mm-hmm. And, you know, at that point, I didn't know that I was going to publish a book.
Wow. That's incredible. So that's actually, I tend to think you might be a little bit more on the rare side because, you know, you talk to a lot of writers, or I talk to a lot of writers, and they say things like I say, like, oh, I've always wanted to be a writer. But, you know, and I had a lot of starts and stops. And for you, it came to you. You didn't come to writing. It came to you. The story started telling them to you, essentially, right?
Yeah, I spent 3 years in retirement. I don't remember what I was doing for those 3 years. And then I started writing. And I'm going to call it a gift of in retirement, a career that was totally unexpected.
Wow. So your career had nothing, or your previous career had nothing to do with the writing industry, the craft, anything like that. Completely different.
No, not with the industry. But it ties in a little bit with my pantser stuff in a way, because part of my career in the corporate world, I spent 25 years in the corporate world, named the insurance company. I was probably with it for some time, but I was in middle management, project leader. And at one time I wrote manuals. I was a manual writer. Okay. So that's kind of like a programmer in a way. You think linearly, step by step, everything has to fall in line. So I kind of think that way. And I think like a pantser kind of thinks that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we, not that we don't go back and change things
Sure.
do it, but I think that background helped me to write in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And for those that don't know, that are new to the whole writing process, they're just starting their writing journey. When we talk about pantsers, we talk about the context of that is we talk about plotters versus pantsers. And if you're a plotter, you're usually very methodical in your writing style. You're literally plotting out your story. You have outlines. You probably have files on your computer for each character or for chapters, whereas a pantser will literally just sit down and start writing and probably doesn't stop until somebody shakes them and say, hey, get up, you got to stop writing. And I'm right there with you on that. The stories always tell themselves to me. I don't tell a story, they tell it to me, and I'm just the conduit. So I love, and we're very, I don't know about you, I don't know if this is a universal thing, but I'm very visual. I see everything as a movie in my head. So as you're telling me that you're at your daughter's and you look up into the woods and this is what you see, I'm seeing what you're telling me. So I'm already watching the movie of what you're telling me that you saw. And it's very beneficial, I think, for writing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, like, if you're a plotter, you might know the beginning, middle, and end. A pantser, I think in general, might know one thing. Like I know the beginning, the characters, and they take me through it, the middle, the end. In fact, with the first book, Dead and Gone, actually, my wife won't forget this either, but I literally, once I had it done, and actually after I had even self-edited it a couple of times, I woke up in the middle of the night and I said, oh my God. And I went and I changed the ending. I had an incredible idea and I changed the ending. And it's a total surprise.
Oh, that's exciting. Very
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah. I said in the beginning, I'm so envious of mystery writers, thriller writers, anyone who can write like that. Because I can't do it. It's not like, I think I want everything like right at the beginning, like right away. So, and I'm terrible at figuring it out. So I will be, when I read when I read your books, I'm sure that person that at the end, her jaw is on the floor going, I had no idea. I know there's people that like, they brag, readers that are like, oh, I can figure it out in the first, couple
Yeah.
of chapters. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I'm never the one to figure it out.
Yeah.
And
So,
you didn't figure it out really technically, like it told you. Did you know from the beginning, like the whole who done it part of the story, so to speak? Did you know that from the beginning, or is that what changed for you in the story
I
without
didn't.
giving anything
I
away?
didn't. I didn't. And in
Okay.
my other books, when I start out, I might think I know who done it, but
Mhm.
somewhere along the way that gets changed. And like I said, things happen, and along the way, you plant some red herrings, and
Mhm.
and actually in the first book, there was a red herring that I planted that I didn't know was going to be a red herring until I got to the end, and I tied it in. I said, "Oh my God, that's a real red herring." So.
Isn't that
Um,
one of the most exciting things about that whole writing process, that the discovery of everything through it, that things that you didn't even know were happening or going to be happening, and then when you go back, it's like, oh my God, wow, I'm pretty good.
yeah. Well, and I say my job as a mystery writer is part magician and part
Mm.
mystery writer, because you want to take somebody where you want to lead somebody down a path and then pull the rug out at the end.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I think that's so brilliant to be able to do that, really. So tell me now, how long, I always love finding out how long it takes people to write their books. How long did it take you to write, say your first one specifically? How long did that take you to write?
Well, that one, I think when you write your first book, it's always longest, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that took about 3 years until it was done.
Hmm.
And partially because I didn't know anything. I didn't
Hmm.
know what beta readers were. I didn't know the editing process. the whole process from start to finish, what you really need to concentrate on to put out a polished product. So
Sure.
that took quite a
Hmm.
my second book, it's interesting in that I actually wrote the Lex book second. And the reason for that is because at one point, when I thought I knew a lot, I started to query, agents. And it was probably premature. And I understand why I didn't get, that route.
Oh, yeah.
And I wound up self-publishing.
Hmm.
But when I started querying agents, one of the things I read that they were looking for in the world of mysteries were female detectives.
Hmm.
So I started to write the second book, which was actually I started writing the third book, which was Dying for Fame.
Okay.
And when I started writing that, well, another interesting thing happened to me. People who read Dead and Gone were saying, "Hey, when is the next Dan Shields book coming out?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh my God, I'm already typecast." So that's when I kind of put, Lex aside, and I
Yep.
started writing the second Dan Shields book. Because I guess when you have an audience, you better cultivate the audience.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. As soon as they start telling you what they want to see or read, I should say, then you better listen because they know. And yeah, so that's pretty amazing. Now, tell me what it was like for you writing a female character, especially not, or a female lead character, especially when you weren't maybe necessarily initially planning on doing that. Some writers will say that they struggle with writing for the opposite sex and making it seem authentic and genuine. What was your experience with that?
I'm glad you asked. I was going to actually bring that up because that is very difficult.
Mm,
I've read about it. I read that it's very difficult for a male to write as a female, and it is true.
mm,
Now, I'm very fortunate. My wife is a consummate reader, and she's my
nice.
first editor.
Mhm.
And when I give her pages, I turn in a chapter to her. It's like turning in a test at school,
Mhm.
and I get it back with red marks all over the page.
That's
And
great.
she tells me, "Mark, Lex is not going to dress like this. She's not going to wear this.
Hmm.
She wouldn't say this. This is not female thinking." So
Hmm.
she actually helped form Lex Stall. She helped
That's
her through.
awesome.
So you're right in your question, your assumption. Men writing as women, I guess it can be done, but it is difficult.
Yeah, sure. And vice versa, same writing male characters. I have yet to write a true lead male character, for that very reason that I don't know if I can do it with authenticity, that it might seem still too feminine. It's still not quite right. So I haven't broached it yet, but you have the perfect solution for that. You have a built-in reference guide right there with your wife. So I might be putting my husband to work too in my writing. There could be. You've inspired me actually
Right.
now. So thank you.
You might. You might.
It could
Um,
happen.
I just want to add one thing too. When it
Sure.
comes to mystery writing and
Mhm.
suspense and all that stuff, I think it's important to, well, there's a little bit of you in every character in the book.
Mhm.
And there is a little bit of you that comes out in the book in other ways. Like I insert a fair amount of humor in the book. I try to do it in a real work it
Mhm.
in as it's happening. And I think that's important to a story. You can't keep everything on a serious line going throughout it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. That's a perfect way to put it too. Tell me a little bit about your upcoming book. You have a new release coming out pretty soon. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Um, Dead Wrong is, I'm going to call it a sequel to Dead Right. Okay,
Okay.
this is the third book in the Dan Shields series.
Mhm.
Um, and for people who don't know, Dan is a rogue type of detective.
Mhm.
I'm sure your husband would find a lot of fault in some of the things he does because Dan doesn't play by the book.
Mhm.
Okay, and he's fortunate to have a boss, a captain who kind of turns his head. He knows that Dan doesn't do some things the right way, but he gets the job done. So he admires Dan in a way, and yet he knows he could be in trouble with the big boss. So the third book is typical Dan, and it takes him through two very different cases. The first case takes place at a local college, which I call Hartford City College, but you read it and you really realize it's University of Hartford. And the first crime scene is where a student who's been on the air is actually killed while he's on the air. And there's also a security guard who dies a much crueler death in that scene. And later on in the book, Dan is drawn into a bizarre case, which is takes place on Halloween evening, and two separate men, well, I gave a little away. No, two separate victims are dressed in Batman suits. They're in different locations, but they're both shot to death. And Dan is called to both crime scenes, and it's a matter of are these killings related? Are they coincidental? And it leads you down another, adventure.
Nice. They sound so good. They are going on my to be read list. Do you have a big to be read list? I have, my list is so long, and I sometimes I have to, like, I don't go in order. I'll just close my eyes and pick one at randoms. But these sound so good. So tell me a little bit about your research when you do books like this, because I'm going to make an assumption that you don't have, I know based on what you said, you weren't in law enforcement prior, you were in the corporate world. So tell me about how you research and get prepared to write these characters.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people, when I give talks, they ask two questions. One, have I ever been in law enforcement? I say, no. And then I actually add, well, I've not been in jail yet either. So
good to hear.
I do have, I call it a little bit of staff. I do have a police officer that I consult. I have an attorney who happens to be a relative. I have a couple of nurses, EMTs. And in fact, one of the unique things about Dan Shields is that he carries an EpiPen. Okay. He has an allergic reaction to nuts. And in the first book, there is a scene where he's at someone's house and he is offered some banana bread and there's nuts in it. So there's a scene there where he needs the EpiPen, but he happens to not have it with him. So when I wrote the scene, okay, I would have actually killed him. So I had to consult with my nurses and my EMTs, and they said, no, you would have killed them if they did this. So here's the absolute way to do it. So, and there's another medical scene in the second book. So I had to run these things all by the experts. So it does take a little bit of a staff. There are times I do ask some questions about weapons, and I actually have a forensics expert. But I do get an out, because Dan Shields is the detective who he breaks all the rules. So I have a little bit of an out when I stray from the norm.
Yeah. So anybody who's in the business says, oh, that's not how it would have been done. There's your out right there. Well, he doesn't play by the rules. So there you go.
And I will say about Dan Shields, my favorite author is Michael Connelly. Okay. And Harry Bosch is his detective. He's a little bit out there too. One of my favorite movies is The French Connection.
Okay.
Gene Hackman played Popeye Doyle. So Dan is kind of molded with both of those characters in mind.
Nice.
And Dan is also a family man. He's got that soft side, the other side of him. He's a family man, cares about his family. And then he's the cop on the job.
Nice. That's such a perfect balance of a character too. And, and I think there are authors out there that fail, that they don't make them, layered like that. They're one dimensional. So when you have a character that's multi-layered like that and has the home life, and you get to see who he is. And that's very true in real life. I can, as some of you may know, I know Mark knows that my husband is in law enforcement, and it kind of goes for everyone, really. You're one person out in public with people that you don't know, and you're a completely different person with your family. And that's especially true in law enforcement. People make the assumption that my husband is very straight-laced and very serious and all that. And he's not, I mean, don't tell anybody, but my husband's a big goofball, at home, but that's the at-home side. And I love that you show that in your books of a law enforcement character, and in specifically, because they are two sides like that. So I like that you caught that and you put that in there. I think it's really important.
Yeah. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about Lex Doll.
Yeah.
Okay, she's my female detective. She's a tenacious female detective from Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
She's out of the Central Park precinct, and she is also, she's got a lot of skeletons in her closet. She's an attractive, I don't want to say sexy, but she is. She's an attractive detective. She's got a 14-year-old daughter who she's raising. She's divorced. Okay, so we get into that, her home life and divorce, and actually, it's a kind of a messy divorce, and that part of it comes to life in the book too. And but she's also tenacious. She's a detective with a personality, and it's interesting in that some books you can't avoid, you can't shy away from a little bit of. My wife doesn't like. No, you can't shy away from some sex in the books,
right.
Either
Mm-hmm.
by. I mean, I'm not I don't get into graphic,
Sure.
but you can't shy away from the fact that people are human, and they're sexual.
Right.
So that's another part of bringing characters to life. You have to make them human.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always find those are always, I think, the hardest things. There's obviously plenty of authors out there that are super comfortable writing that. And I think the way to make it, the writing for that type of stuff, the most authentic, is to do what's most comfortable for you. And I think that comes across very genuine and very real. But you're absolutely right. It would not be a reflection of real life if it wasn't in there to some degree. But so I have, as you're talking about Lex and Dan, I couldn't help but wonder, will they ever work a case together? Is that ever a possibility? Or am I giving any kind, I hope I'm not giving any kind of spoiler here, if that's something you have planned for us.
Well, it's interesting. I guess without having read, is it Dead Right? Which book is it? Well, yes. Okay. Because I'm right. Yes, Dan does get involved in Dying for Fame. That's correct. Because in Dying for Fame, the action takes place in Manhattan.
Okay.
But I'm from Hartford, okay? And I should mention this. Both Dead and Gone and Dead Right take place in Hartford.
Okay.
So in Dying for Fame, there is a scene in there, or a cause for Lex to actually, part of the book does take place in Hartford. So yes, okay. Lex does involve Dan in Dying for Fame. So now why I'm getting a little confused is because actually in the new book, Dead Wrong, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm writing the next book. Boy, I'm getting so confused because I've got Dead Wrong ready to go, but I'm also writing, I didn't mention this, I'm also writing the second Lex book.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they do cross paths. They do.
That's exciting.
Together, that would be a whole different thing.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. What from thinking of your readers, how exciting that had to have been for them to see the two characters meet, because they're obviously two separate series. So to have them join together, it's like watching a show, where another show performers from another show do a guest appearance. I love that kind of stuff. So that's really, really cool. So do you have a projected number of books for each series, or or it's organic and it just, when you're done with it, you'll be done with it? Or do you have like a set limit for them?
I can't say I have a set limit. I am in the process of writing the second Lex book. I'm about 30,000 words into it. And I expect to have that finished writing 3 or 4 months. And then, the massaging you have to do, the editing and everything. So maybe early 2023, we'll project that one. But I have a book that I wrote that I can't wait to get out there. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't fit with Lex and Dan.
Very interesting.
It's a serial killer.
Okay.
And it written in the first person, which is a total departure. But it is such a different book, and I want to get it out there. So right now I'm thinking I'd like to get the second Lex book out, but then I'd also like to get the serial killer book out. It's called Avenger. That's what it's called. Avenger.
Okay.
And one of the unique things, I'll just tell you, one of the unique things about the book is that you never really know the character's name. You really never know his name.
Oh, very cool. That might get bumped up to the top of my to be read list.
Well, that's going to probably be 2024. We'll have to be alive and well.
Okay. Yeah, you tell me. So I've got the inside track here because, I know you outside of this interview. In our author and publishers group, we're both members of the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. So sorry, guys, I've got the inside track and I'm going to get that pre-order before everybody else does. I'm just telling you. And I'll tell you what, Mark, what phenomenal timing for that type of book and actually crime books in general. I mean, people are obsessed with true crime right now, true crime podcasts, anything to do with crime. People are loving it. I don't know what that says for us as a society, but but for the land of authorship, it's phenomenal timing.
See, now I'm getting excited about Avenger. I'll tell you the pretext, okay?
Okay.
And it starts with a guy who has spent 24, 25 years in prison, convicted of killing his wife, okay? He did not do it, but he knows who did it. He believes he knows who did it. And 25 years later, something happens and he gets paroled. He gets out of jail. But he, thinking he knows who killed his wife, that's his first mission, to take out the killer of his wife.
Oh, I love it already.
and he's wrong. So that starts him on a mission where he becomes this serial killer.
Oh, this is going to be so good. Mark, you've got a great story coming along. We got to wait till 2024 for that one? That's not fair.
I think so. I right now I'm catering to my audience a little bit. And, but it's been the book that I've loved all along. And I just keep saying, I got to get it out. And I'm not getting it any younger. And so I think that will be the 2024 will probably be the target for that one.
That is fantastic. I love your whole writing journey, how it started, where you're at right now. And I think it's so inspiring for anyone who's even, had a story pop into their head. It just, if you have a story that pops in, you sit down and write it down. You never know what's going to happen with it. You never know where it's going to lead. I mean, you're on, so let's see, there's 3 or 4 published, no, 3 published, another 2, technically another 3 on the way, essentially. Yes. I mean, so from the moment that you sat down and started writing Dead and Gone, it's been nonstop almost, right? I mean, it's just that the words have just kept pouring, the stories have kept pouring out, right?
Well, I'm not sure if that's a product of having all these weird things in my head all these years kind of coming out on paper or not. but I guess there's a point in which you are not sure if you're an author or a writer, and then there's a point when you cross that, and other people tell you, yeah, you are, and then you realize, boy, I am, and that's my. I don't want to call it a job. And it's not a hobby either,
Right.
but it's what I do now, and
It's your calling.
it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. It became your calling, right? It literally called to you, and it became a huge part of this chapter of your life, which I think is incredible and inspiring, super, super inspiring for sure.
Yeah, well, I think I'm not sure who said it. It was Grisham or somebody, but and I've met him and talked to him too, and he's a nice guy. But I think part of being an author is being in a room by yourself all day and playing with your imaginary friends.
Yes, absolutely. So true. Yeah, it's a strange little world we live in inside our heads, and so unless you're a writer or an author, it probably is really hard for people to understand the how of what we do. But for those of us that do understand and connect on that level, it's such a relief when you talk to other people. You said early on in our conversation about the characters taking on their own lives and basically telling you what to write and who they are. And boy, that's so true. Every character that I've ever written is so a part of me. I was so invested in their lives, their made up lives, but I was so incredibly invested in them, and deeply caring about them, which to like I said, to people outside of our lane, that sounds weird, but we all understand each other, right? When we say that.
We do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's close out with if you had some advice to a new writer, to an aspiring writer, what would that advice be to them?
There's a lot. I start out with what are your goals? I mean, why are you writing a story? Is it to make money, self-satisfaction, learn the difference between traditional publishing and self-publishing and some of the hybrids, but also learn the value and the need to have authors, not authors, authors too, but editors. And there are different types of editors. So you learn to know what you need. And I need developmental editors, copy editor, line editor, proofreaders, the whole thing. Learn what it takes to put out a good product, a polished product. And the other thing that a lot of authors don't want to hear, I know, or prospective authors, it's not a free ride, okay? Expect to put in some money. And the last part of my little sermon is to, once it's out on Amazon, you have to realize that Amazon is a vehicle for people to get the books, but it's not going to be the vehicle to put the money in your pocket.
Right.
So that's a little bit of word of advice. Before I forget, I'd like to talk about one thing that's very important to me. And that's that I donate partial proceeds from all my books to the Boston Children's Hospital.
Wow.
And I'm honored that they actually honored me last 2019, 2020. Yeah, they honored me for my contributions. So that's something I take a lot of pride in.
That's beautiful. I had no idea that you did that, Mark. That is so amazing. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I could do this all day with you, Mark. There's so many more questions. There's like a million questions I still want to ask you. So I think I'm going to have to beg you to come back on the show again another time for me. Actually, when you release your next one, can I get you back on the show again?
You can get me back anytime you want. Yeah.
Outstanding.
I'm
I appreciate
very
it.
hopeful that the next one is out before Valentine's Day.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it won't be long. Yep.
Awesome. Terrific. Yeah. So, all right. That's a plan. I just pinpointed you. I put the thumbtack on you and held
Okay.
you down and told you you're coming back on the show. So now you're
Thank you.
stuck.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Elsa.
Awesome. Mark, one last thing. Tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your books, if you're going to be out doing any book signings. I know with COVID, maybe not so much, but just in case, tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, you can find my books on Amazon in Kindle or paperback. You can order them from any bookstore. Barnes and Noble in downtown Hartford has been very, very good to me.
Nice.
The books sell well there. You can walk in there. In fact, I was there one day this summer with my granddaughter, and Dying for Fame was sitting right next to the cash register. So she thinks I'm famous,
Oh,
and
I
that's
love
all
it.
that matters.
That's
Um,
all that matters.
um, I do a lot of craft events. I have a few lined up for 2022, but as far as the author signings go, 2020 was what it was, and I don't think any of us were out there. And 2021 starting off a little bit lean, so the actual author talks, I don't have any scheduled right now.
Okay. Yep. Understandable. We're all in
Yeah,
that same
yeah,
boat, unfortunately, but well, hopefully better days are coming for all that stuff. I know I miss it. I enjoy doing all those things. So
yeah,
it'll be great when we can do them all again for sure.
yeah. Maybe we'll see each other in person
Yes,
again.
absolutely. I know. Won't that be nice? That would be
Yeah,
wonderful. Actual in-person encounters. How
yeah,
rare.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I look forward to having you back on again soon.
Thanks again, Nelson.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, family, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life, why not check out one of my books? They're all available on Amazon and most major online book retailers, as well as elsacurtain.com.